Oh.
Hey, as long as you get the sugar-free gummy bears afterwards to just really induce the shits, you'll be just fine.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Welcome back, Mighty Vandals, to Tubs of the Club, brought to you this week by Snake River Stampede Whisky. We are the Idaho Vandals affiliate on the Big Sky Podcast Network. I am your host, Dallas Hammer, back from whatever vacation Brian said I was taking. I forget. Nickelback. Shit. There we go. Martin. I knew Martin was in Nickelback. I couldn't remember where I was. I know. I'm. It's been a week. Joined today, as always, by brave, bold Brian Marceau. Brian.
Dude, good to be here. And Steve Kurtz noticing I made sure to angle that camera so you guys can see what you all came here to see. Yes, that's a duster in the background. Good to be here, guys. Sometimes hard to say that right now, but like truly good to be here. Got a lot to talk about today. There's nowhere else I'd rather be.
Brian's duster is back, which means we are about 3 steps away from being on the right track, guys. Last but not least, the man in Moscow himself, who was also at Nickelback this last weekend, Martin Heemstra. Martin, how's it going,
man? Doing good. It's happy to be back after my little extended stay. It was definitely a little feeling better now, and not so much everything is past, if you will. So, yeah.
Martin's body looking more like Josh Wood than Jack Wagner right now. Guys, do we want to get into any recap about Eastern? I know, Brian, you did the hour-long postmortem of, holy shit, we just watched Idaho season just get executed and then executed again. And a third time, why not?
So, well, I mean, look, I think I kind of covered it going an hour. But Dallas, you were on the shelf. You were not able to watch the game live, which that's kind of like a good news, bad news thing. Because the good news is you get to fast forward through a rough game. But the bad news is you don't at least get to convince yourself that a win might be on the table at some point. So I know, look, we're We're probably still going to talk long-term takeaways from that game because I just spoiler alert, like Portland State is terrible. There's not that much to bring up as previewing this team. The bigger issue is if you can't beat Portland State, it's worse than we thought. Or, hey, at least like established, we know what the bottom is and it's not as scary as it could be. But anyway, Dallas, you were gone. You did not get to talk about the game. Anything you want to bring up?
Well, if you lose to Portland State, fire everyone. Don't care who you are. Hell, fire the fucking president, the athletic director, like get rid of everybody. Just there's my Portland State preview. But Brian, from that Eastern game, that was soul crushing. I'm only 24 hours post watch because I was out of cell service all weekend long. So I am still a little bit maybe tender to some of that. I thought the defense looked pretty solid. Now, obviously, the cast of Eastern Washington is a little bit different. They can't really throw the ball. They're down to their second string quarterback, who is a essentially pure running quarterback. So, yes, Ricks and Blenman in the secondary did a much better job of staying on top of routes. But again, this is not necessarily a team that puts any fear into anybody. They almost lost to Portland State a couple weeks ago. So, and honestly, probably should have after throwing them back into the game. Offensively, though, Brian, I don't know. I am baffled, absolutely baffled that it took 7.5 quarters to decide, hey, let's try Nick Joseph. He threw the ball okay a little bit last year. Maybe he'll be okay. And he comes in and, yes, it's the end of the game. You're down 2 touchdowns. You know that he's going in there in just a pure throwing situation. But that was the best the offense has looked since Joshua Wood got hurt. And I question why the fuck it took so long for somebody to realize, hey, that kind of physically underwhelming quarterback that we have that seems pretty sharp and he can't throw the ball very far, but he can get it to the open guy. I don't understand why it took so long to come to that decision. And I have a lot of questions about why that decision took so long.
I'm with you on that too. I mean, I feel that I am the champion on this show of being on the Joseph Eck bandwagon early. As in, look, the Ford coaching staff is not the only coaching staff to put Wagner in before Joseph Eck and need to see Wagner in game versus Joseph Eck in game, or like have problems with Wagner in game before you go to Joseph Eck. I don't know how to attribute that to anything other than we know that Wagner has some enticing raw tools, but I don't get it. It's 2 coaching staffs did the exact same thing. But the big news this week is we shouldn't have to care about that because Joshua Wood is back. I'm not trying to write off
as our Sawyer Teeney, top 2 quarterbacks, as Ford has said, both available this week.
Those are both available, and to our knowledge, Wood is going to play, which makes Idaho radically different. But Dallas, shorter version, you and I are in different words, relatively same place from that game against Eastern. I don't know how generalizable that pass defense takeaway is when you substitute NAU and Ty Pennington for Eastern, or when you substitute Jordan Cook and Idaho State, or when you substitute Caden Pinnick, Jerry Rice Award nominee for UC Davis, when you substitute, top 8 Davis team in place of Eastern. I don't know if teams who have quarterbacks who can pick you apart are really gonna have trouble with Idaho essentially kept things in front of them, and Eastern was not able or willing to attempt to hit the middle of the field. Those other teams will. But maybe like just to intimate that we're talking about Portland State after we reference Hughes River for a second, I do think Portland State is probably similar to Eastern, of a team that's not going. I mean, they've thrown 11 picks on the season, 4 touchdowns. If there's a team that's not going to threaten you through the air, it's Portland State.
I mean, we'll get into Portland State here in just a second, guys. But as disappointing as this Vandal season may have been for all of us, what's not disappointing is a great all-inclusive week-long vacation right in your backyard. Hughes River Expeditions is Vandal-owned and operated since 1976, and they're ready to take you on the vacation of a lifetime. Enjoy a multi-day trip down the Middle Fork of the Salmon, the main Salmon River of No Return, the Salmon River Canyons, or even the Selway. And you can check out special trips like one to see the Perseid Meteor Shower. Camp on pristine beaches, run amazing whitewater, hike scenic trails, spot wildlife, soak in the beautiful natural hot springs, and fish the most remote stretches of river in the entire United States. Just bring your clothes, man. HRE is going to handle everything else. Grab a paddle, catch dinner, and ride the bull all throughout the Gem State. Call them now, 406-540-4450, or check them out at hughesriver.com. As Ron Lowney says, hunting season. Hey, guys, again, the wilderness is out there. It's always out there waiting for you, and Hughes River is just waiting for that phone call. Brian, Captain58 in the comments section saying, I swear to God, if Idaho loses to Portland State with Wood at quarterback, I will walk into alligator-infested waters. Captain, you got to come up here to Spokane first and staple a couple stakes to my forehead, and then we'll go do it together. Because if Idaho loses with Joshua Wood at quarterback this weekend, I'm not kidding. Fire everyone. That is, I could not defend that any longer. I defended this team longer than most people around, and I took some flack for it in the Discord for being all happy-go-lucky Dallas, which I've never been. Portland State is. Lesson learned on that one. Portland State is really bad, Brian. Portland State has 9 offensive touchdowns in 7 games. Technically 4 if you take out the 2 shutouts and the 1 game that they got a single field goal in. So 9 touchdowns in 4 games. 9 touchdowns in 4 games, not good. 9 touchdowns in 7 games, absolutely awful. This is a team that has played, I think, 5 different quarterbacks before finally settling on JKS is how they abbreviate it and type it out, because it's John Keave Sagapolatelli. There we go. Nailed it. He of 3 touchdowns and 8 interceptions on the year, Brian.
Well, I mean, there's not a ton to talk about with Portland State. I mean, I'm not trying to be, I've gone out of my way, especially on the Sunday show, to not be aggressively glib, let's say, when we're talking about teams, but it's very hard to be anything but that with Portland State. Portland State is terrible. They're terrible on both sides of the ball. It honestly appears, I have no idea how seriously Bruce Barnum's even taken this season. I mean, I was at Media Day and he sounded about as conclusive and knowledgeable about his team as I do right now. So it's hard to really do. What's the preview for Portland State, Dallas? They can't pass. They can't run. They can't stop the run. They can't stop the pass. Against Eastern Washington, the way they scored, part of it was really weird fluke plays, like running a flea flicker from their own 1-yard line. The weirdest thing about Portland State is they seem to be willing to do, because of how bad they are, at the literal level, anything is on the table. So maybe that part is kind of weird to prep for, but the story of Portland State, like I said, they're terrible. There's nothing they do well. This isn't like Northern Colorado where you're like, hey, it's a 2nd-year coach who, like, if he figures a thing or 2 out, you understand how this changes. Barnum's been there for a while. They're trending downward, like in the world of college football. Year. Yeah, in the world of college football, like they're resource poor in a way that makes like resource poor FCS teams blush. Mm-hmm. So like the bigger question here is now, look, I'm not worried about Idaho winning the game, especially with Joshua Wood playing, but you can hear a tone of uncertainty in our voice. And that's, look, the big deal is I talked about on the show, Idaho had their most favorable run of the season was UNC, Eastern, and Portland State. And Idaho sits at 0-2 right now in that most favorable run. So not only is this a must-win game for Idaho to stop the bleeding, this is the type of game where, I mean, I think we gotta start to see some things change, not just on the players got to change, and also some of the ways coaching staff's been handling certain situations. If if there's a single game where we're going to see growth in 1 week, that's where we have to be. That honestly, my view here is I barely care about the Portland State end. I care infinitely this game about the Idaho end.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Brian. This is concerning. This year has not gone as any of us had hoped. Obviously, the expectations were very lofty. Thomas Ford even said it in the press conference after Eastern. Expectations were lofty. Wouldn't necessarily change them. Believes that this group can play at a high level, but hey, when you look back at it, man, there is so much youth on this team. A whole bunch of guys playing in roles they haven't really played before because there's not a lot of guys that have had some serious snaps. So you're breaking in guys at almost every position. The depth didn't end up quite being what you'd hoped it would be. again, you came in as one of the last coaches in the cycle because of just how it happened. So you're putting together your transfer class late. Like, there's all these things. But Brian, this is a team that keeps getting outcoached on the sidelines. And that for me is the most concerning thing. The back-to-back weeks that Idaho gave up a god-awful touchdown at the end of the first half, just simply based on dog shit coaching. And this has been a pattern throughout the year that we see coaches screwing things up on the sidelines. And again, most of these guys, very first times in their role. Yes, Court Dennison has some experience as a defensive coordinator. Thomas Ford has been a head coach at a smaller level before, but this is concerning for me, Brian. Idaho has significantly more talent than Portland State at virtually every aspect of the field. Joshua Wood is back, so this should be a game that is the knock the rust off, get loose. Idaho puts up 40, but at what point do we stop looking towards, hey, here's how all the things that should happen, and look back on things like giving up a touchdown to Northern Colorado with 30 some seconds left at the end of the half, getting the ball with 1 minute and 15 seconds, and somehow 18-yard punting it to Eastern's 30 after passing the ball too many times and allowing them to have a chance to score. Just so many little things that build up over the years weeks, I guess it feels like years at this point. I am very concerned for that, Brian. I need to see the Idaho coaching staff come out with a game plan that just pantses the Vikings, and I don't know if we're going to see that.
Yeah, I mean I talked about the end of the half thing because that you're right, 2 touchdowns back-to-back halves. I'm not saying that touchdown was the difference in the UNC game, but that touchdown was the difference in the Eastern game because legitimately without that touchdown, it's a 14-14 game in spite of how terrible things went. So no, those were, especially for the Eastern game, that was a game-altering set of decisions at the end of the second quarter. So I don't have any pushback for you other than to say that's why I've talked about this as like, hey, 5-week tryout, guys. Because I disagree with the premise of a season being over when you don't make the playoffs. I think a version of a season's over when you know you're not in the playoffs. But one, football season's super short, guys. We spend 9 months like building up for it, and then it's just gone in a blink. So in that way, every week's important. But the other thing is if you're a team that is younger, like Idaho, and you have coaches too who are earlier in their careers or they are stepping out to a role they have not really spent a ton of time in, there is no such thing as a wasted week. Every week is a chance to get better. Every week is a time to look at the film from the last weeks and get better. And I mean, now that Joshua Wood's back, this is a chance for, I think Idaho really offensively needs to reevaluate what the overarching paradigm is, because since Art Williams been gone, they're not getting much out of the running backs, and that has been persistent for multiple weeks. It's one of the things to me that I get if you're playing with your backup quarterbacks like Idaho did last week. I understand feeling like you got to be conservative to some extent, and at the hey, they are getting some work out of Rocco Coke too, so not trying to dismiss that because that's not nothing on the ground. But I don't. Joshua Wood, if you didn't put together that there is an ocean of difference between Joshua Wood and the next guy up, and if you haven't put together that there is kind of an ocean of difference between who you would call a relative strength on Idaho compared to Joshua Wood, I don't get how you don't start to put the ball in the guy's hands more and say, hey, if we're going to win games, it's offensively, it's going to be because you're doing it. We know that defensively, this team is not going to stop a ton of teams this year. Or, what you can hope is for the improvements on defense will yield enough stops, let's say Dallas. But this is a team that can't rely on its defense the way we believed it could after the WSU game or after the Utah Tech game. We were just wrong. And everyone who believed that was just wrong. That's where we're at. So I guess that's the phase one paradigm shift that I'm most concerned about and hope we see is offensively. Is Idaho going to look at what has been working more effectively? Lean into that. And I got to say, look at that second half of the Montana game where I know you can't do that every single play of Joshua Wood, but like put the ball in his hands. He's your ace. Let him win the game for you. That's the very biggest change I'm hoping to see.
Outside of just changes, I mean, some of the things to look for, like obviously Marquand McCraney finally like kind of had the big pop that we all expected him to have. And Ford said, he said it in the post game. He also said it in the weekly press conference. Like Marquand missed like all of camp with an injury, so he's just been behind everybody as far as getting reps and getting the practice time. Just ended up behind the 8 ball just to start the year, just from having the surgery in the spring. So really nice to see him pop off like that. I think there's some things you can take away, Brian, with Joshua Wood coming back. I think the running backs will probably look a little bit better, just because you have to respect Joshua Wood a little bit more than you did Rocco Koch and Jack Wagner. Nothing but respect for those guys for going out there. I mean, they certainly look better than I would doing that, but it showed why Rocco is not a guy that gets to throw the ball much.
Yep.
Jack Wagner is what we've seen. Hopefully we'll see a little bit better out of Nate Thomas and Eli Cummings, but at the same point, they are seniors and they are not going to be here next year. If you're going, again, there is still talk in at least in the press conference of like, hey, if Idaho wins all 5 of these games, now that Joshua Wood's back, hey, they could maybe sneak in the FCS and the especially the Big Sky is not quite where it was. Maybe they can sneak in. And yes, sure. But if we're being realistic here, Brian, I love what Eli Cummings did for this program across 3 different coaching staffs. Nate Thomas was really awesome here at times, and then unfortunately his just the injuries have kind of worn on both of them. I don't really care to see either one of them the rest of this season. Like, yeah, I hope they get to play out their senior years and have a great time and get some good playing time. But man, we've seen Carlos Matheny get 5 carries in 2 years, and maybe he doesn't deserve them, but he's been here for 3 years. Let's try seeing what can happen here. And I'd like to see that with some of the youth across all of the team. Honestly, I know that there's for everybody that's breaking out, like Matthias McLean had a really good game, 3.5 tackles for loss and a sack. Where are the rest of the young guys that are not getting many opportunities? Throw them in here. It can't be a whole lot worse than what we've seen over the last few weeks. That's what I really want to see is let's change things up. Let's get more guys snaps so that next year, assuming you bring back a good portion of this roster, you bring back guys that have multiple games of experience from every single guy. That's my dream, because right now you're building for 2026 and the hope that, hey, yeah, year 1 didn't go the way we wanted it to. Maybe a little bit of tweaking of coordinators, maybe a little bit of tweaking of position coaches. Obviously, going to be a big grab from the transfer portal in many places. I want to know what's here in this roster, because there are a bunch of guys that haven't played.
Yeah, a couple of things you brought up. First off, I think our listeners are on the hashtag right track here. Of there's no reason to worry about the playoffs until Idaho's peeled off 4 wins in a row. Yeah. When that happens, if that happens, then we change our tone. But legitimately, until we're looking at Idaho wins 4 games in a row, I'm spending no energy worrying about the playoffs. I'm more concerned about things getting better. No, I'd like a couple things for you, just because I've seen practice. Like, I just assume that guys like Carlos Matheny are probably not going to be a starter at Idaho at any point. So but I understand your basic point of, one, some of the transfer upperclassmen, they just haven't really delivered the way we maybe thought they would. This isn't meant to call any people out, but like, hey, Maurice Himes and Donovan Parham, we thought those guys, partially because of observations, we thought those guys might be kind of game-changing players for Idaho. And hey, the jury's in, they're not. We have seen guys like Matthias McLean can be very good. I think he needs more help. McLean's an obvious bright spot on the D line, and it's not remotely close. But even in the secondary, Hyson Dalton's he's not an upperclassman, but Hyson Dalton has not contributed quite the level I think a lot of people thought. Zachary Spears, upperclassman, not contributed at a level a lot of us thought. That's why I think, look, the answer for some of these position groups is we're gonna learn about it in the offseason, because it's clear that new guys have to come in. But I guess to your point, that's part of what we're playing. That's part of what you mean when you say, hey, give some other guys a few reps, because there's no question. I believe I brought this up on the last episode. But I'm going to say it 1,000 times until I know everyone gets it. It is normal in the second year of a coach being there to have a lot of roster turnover. It's also normal in the first year to keep the core guys, because every other coach, we all know this, but hey, Bobby Houck has been recruiting for 2026 for an entire year. Thomas Ford's been recruiting for 2026 for an entire year. There's a lot of guys coming in. He was not recruiting for Idaho for an entire year for 2025. Was he starting completely cold? No, because of course he had some guys he's recruiting at OSU. So want to be fair, but it's not the same being an assistant at a different school, recruiting to a different school, as having the keys to a program, pushing it in the direction you want for a year. Which is to say, we know there's a lot of guys who are going to come in this coming year. It's normal, and Ford's in a better spot. But we also know, look at Sac State. It can't be a complete overhaul if you want to hit the ground running. So guys this year are certainly playing for, are they going to be on the team? Are they going to be in contention to start? And I guess if you just look at what the team's done both offensively and defensively, I don't think you can sell anyone, including coaches, on the fact that, hey, they've got all the player combinations down. I mean, look at Idaho offensively in Big Sky play. They're scoring. Idaho scoring 25-ish a game in Big Sky play. On the season, they're scoring 24.6, third worst in the conference. You just can't tell anyone, hey, we're scoring third worst in the conference. That means we're ready.
I mean, you're not wrong, Brian. But we're this is the worst time. This is the worst time of a football program. This season is not over. Yes, theoretically, there's still a microcosm of a chance that you can make the playoffs. Realistically, we are just in pure evaluation mode, and we've talked about it before. There are certainly guys that are not going to be coming back next year. Whether that's somebody gets a hell of an offer to go up to FBS and get paid to sit on the bench, or whether it's, I don't know, Cameron Pope has been the guy that has been getting a lot of fire over the last year. Ford has talked about, like, you got to play your way back onto the team. Yes, he was punting, and so maybe he's transitioned to punter, and maybe that's gonna be a thing. But like, Ford has made it clear, like, there are guys that are gonna have to battle here, and we don't know who all of them are. But there are, Brian, I'm looking through the roster. There are so many redshirted guys that I have not seen on the field, and that's the shittiest part about this, is that's how we figure out how to make the rest of the season interesting and fun to us, is talking about guys that, hey, maybe there's something there that we don't know about. Maybe there's something the coaches don't know about. And that's, for as much conjecture as that is, X said that last at the end of his first year, of like, I'm looking back on it, I should have played Ormani Arnold a whole lot more. Then he plays as a starter for 1 year at Idaho and goes and moves on to the Power Four. I'm not saying Idaho's got a bunch of Power Four guys sitting in the reserves just waiting to get their chance, but we have seen time and time again things not work. And if things struggle working against what is legitimately the worst team you are going to play on this schedule by a wide margin, then what are we doing here? Ford has talked a lot in the pressers, Brian, about the mentality around the team is really good. The guys haven't quit. The coaches just need to do a better job of getting guys in positions to succeed and getting things coached up better. When are we going to see that? Because that's my biggest concern. That's why I've been so focused on the players for the last handful of minutes, because we haven't seen a bunch of that. Now, Camus Chris in the comment section, we lost a lot of our team. We're getting a new coach. We're going to suck for a couple years. I don't know if suck for a couple of years. I don't know if I agree with that part, but we did. We lost most of our team. We are breaking in a new coach, a new offensive coordinator, a new to us defensive coordinator. Like, there's a lot of things that are currently happening, but the progress has not been there, Brian. And that's I think the most concerning thing for me. And we've talked about this a little bit outside of the bands of the podcast. you got to see growth, and I have not seen a whole lot of that. Now, maybe Joshua Wood comes back out on Saturday, and it's, hey, Idaho did put up 40 points, and yeah, hey, that having quarterback one back in the room papers over a lot of problems, but that's still just papering over the problem.
Well, yes and no. I mean, we'll eventually need to talk about a couple other things too, just for timing purposes. But I guess, well, I don't want to like say Joshua Wood simply papers over a problem and the problems are still there. Like any team with a good starting quarterback is going to look worse if that guy's out. Like, is NAU where they're at without Ty Pennington? Absolutely not.
Not a chance.
No. Is Montana State where they're at without Justin Lamson? No. Like, they're still probably good, but like they're top 4 in the nation. Like, are they top 4 in the nation with their backup? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the point you're also getting at is Joshua Woods certainly will help this team level up. I think we all did not understand how much Joshua Wood mattered at the start of the season to this team. But the point you're bringing up is Joshua Wood doing better matters, but Joshua Wood doesn't make the D line get to the quarterback. Joshua Wood doesn't make the DBs hang with wide receivers. And exactly. We've covered this kind of exhaustively. There's two different answers. Some guys got to play better, and some guys are going to be on the team next year that are – Ford's not going to have trouble selling the opportunity to play to recruits this coming season. So I think that part's pretty damn clear. I do want to talk about McCraney just for 1 second before we pivot more to like, hey, keys to the game, which will all be Idaho. Did you think Marquand McCraney looks like easily the best receiver on the team?
100% by a mile, not even close. Not even close.
Which is like, hey, to me, that's fantastic to hear. I mean, one, I wish we had him ready day one. The injury, like, hey, the injury stuff matters. I'm glad he's recovered from his injury enough that obviously he's producing at a level and taking hits and doing fine. It's more that in the Big Sky, a lot of the like bigger recruits who land in the Big Sky, there's not actually a very high capitalization rate of those guys. We the sexy guys to talk about are of course quarterbacks, but year in and year out, there's P4, P5 level guys who do come to the Big Sky. I mean, Idaho's got some right now that transferred in as O-linemen and are not starters. But Idaho's not the only school that's like that. So the fact that Idaho looks like they've capitalized with McCraney, and fingers crossed, that means we'll have another year where he can really build chemistry as a starting level player. Hey, that's a development that I don't think people should completely ignore. But the bigger picture that I think we've talked about off the show, and I'm curious to what extent the coaches have this too. If you play back the start of the season and the volume of dudes who left, it would actually be weird for the bench guys on Idaho to capitalize as replacement players at the rate I think we all believed they would, aka 90 to 100% was what we assume, all of us, based off how we talked about the team, based off how we felt about the team. That's about what we appeared to believe would happen. And if you play back the season, that's actually a preposterous belief to expect that the depth pieces and guys who were not starters last year are going to replace a ton of all league guys at the level we thought. I'm curious how long it took the coaches to realize that the replacement talent was not the level that they clearly believed it was at the start of the season, based off how Ford sold the team. And I don't think there's any other way to sell a team when you take over a team that was good the year before. That's not a critique at all. That's the only option of what you're going to do talking about the team. But it seems that with how hard this team has looked like they've been hit hard by the losses, which on one hand, good. That's part of how you get better. But on the other hand, I also think part of getting hit hard by those losses is because I think a lot of people affiliated with Idaho, both players, fans, and coaches, really believed they had the pieces in place day one to be a top 8 playoff team. And dude, the jury's in, they just don't.
Well, and you got to kind of forgive the coaches, us, anybody that bought into that, because we literally just saw it. Jason Eck replaced most of that team, and then it comes out, and yes, the numbers are what they are, and the longevity of their career obviously matters. I think Jordan Dwyer might have been a better receiver than Hayden Hatton. He just only played here for 1 year. I don't want anybody to kill me for that, but Jordan Dwyer, that dude was legit. That guy was going to be an incredible receiver, and then transfer portal has obviously ruined the chances of guys really having 4-year careers here. But it was, hey, the most prolific receiver in school history is gone. Hey, Jordan Dwyer is really good. We didn't really lose a step there. And unfortunately, that did not carry on for yet another year. Weirdly enough, when you're losing that much of your roster year in and year out, it did catch up, and that just sucks.
Yeah, and also, like, hey, to be fair, I mean, just because we're talking comparisons with Eck taking over compared to Ford taking over, a lot of the guys who played very well for Jason Eck were not Jason Eck recruits. Hayden Hatton was not a Jason Eck recruit. Giovanni McCoy was not a Jason Eck recruit. Reason I bring that up is Ford took over essentially a roster of guys who weren't starters. Like there's a couple guys, but legitimately it was a roster of guys who were not starters that I'll own this on my own. We all believed they were going to take that next step. You're right. We saw that happen with Jason Eck, but it's also much more natural of Jason Eck took over. Paul Petrino got his ass fired not because he couldn't recruit, because he couldn't coach. He had talent on that Idaho team. He just did nothing with it. Jason Eck capitalized with the Petrino guys, and then also with the help of Thomas Ford. Dwyer came to Idaho in part because of Thomas Ford, guys. He was able to get that next group of guys, but then it was a completely like the contributors are all gone. That's not what Eck walked into. That is what Ford walked into. And I believe partially because it was a continuity-ish hire, people like us and people like Ford too. Like we weren't on our own doing this, but we do own our own words. Everyone talked about Idaho like they're going to have their replacement rate hit at 90-ish%. And you play it back, it seems like that's a brain dead thing that we should not have thought would happen, but that's why this record lands the way it did. It does. If we had thought Idaho was 500-ish rolling into this season right now, we'd say, yeah, we're about a game-ish behind expectation, which is to say worse than we thought. But it's different to use that more realistic benchmark in my mind as your comparison versus top 8, top 4, keeping the dynasty rolling. And that's just where we're at.
Yeah, Brian, I want to hit in the comment section very quickly before we get to our keys of the game. Crewhead76 and our YouTube handles are weird. So Crewhead, if I start calling you Crewhead7638, I apologize. I don't know why it's doing that now. But Eck didn't recruit good QBs outside of Lane, and he was a walk-on. That is actually something that is probably worth pointing out, Crewhead. The years of Jason Eck being here, you'd think the quarterback room would be a little bit more full, I guess is maybe the word. We've discussed it at length here, Brian. The wins that Jack Wagner put together with last year's significantly better team than this, but Jack Lane was a walk-on who changed his throwing motion in the offseason and then happened to come onto campus and was anointed quite quickly because of what he had between the ears. Outside of that, yeah, we're talking Giovanni McCoy was a Petrino guy. Jack Lane was a walk-on. And the rest of this quarterback room has unfortunately just not succeeded at a Big Sky level particularly well. So
the quarterbacks who've transferred away from Idaho too, at whether it's sub D1 or at D1, are not starting.
Yeah, just a really weird thing that, I think a lot of us, there's a lot of shine from the Eck era because of what it did off of the coming back off of realistically 30 years of pretty bad football to start winning more games than you lose in multiple years in a row was mind-blowing. But I do think as we get farther from the Eck era, I think some of those warts are going to show up. And I mean, hey, credit to Thomas Ford for going and getting Joshua Wood. I don't know how this team would look without Joshua Wood this year. If you take Joshua Wood off this roster, I don't even want to think about that. So, Brian, we're 40 minutes in. The last thing I want to hit is Marquand McCraney before we get to keys of the game. Marquand McCraney, Ford mentioned this in Vandals Weekly on Skyline Sports this week. Marquand McCraney came to Idaho to play receiver. He had a bunch of FBS schools that were recruiting him, and he had offers from 9 or 10 schools, all as a safety. Idaho is where he's at because he wants to play receiver. I think that probably means he's going to be here at least one more year, but let's say he's healthy next year. Joshua Wood comes back. The team kind of figures it out a little bit better than they did this year. then yeah, he might be gone come 2027. But it is guys like that do give me the buy-in on Coach Ford of like, hey, that guy's a pretty damn good receiver. Like at this level, he's going to be one of the best players on this team next year, assuming he's here next year. All because Ford wanted to give the guy a shot at the position he wants to play. So I know we're doom and gloom. I know this has been extra negative, and I know I've been extra negative because I'm still 24 hours off of the Eastern loss on my delayed watch. But there are some still good things to look at here that can say, hey, there are some gems. There's some things that you can build off of. I just hope to see a lot more of it happening very soon, Brian. But before we get to that, it's Keys of the Game presented by Pacific Custom Sportswear, Brian. I'm going to let you do this ad read because I need to blow my nose.
Hashtag producing in public, guys. Okay. Look, check out vandalgear.com. Single best place online to get your Vandal shirts. You got your fine tater shirt, home sweet dome. You got the retro Grumpy Joe yellow shirt with the gray stripe across. It's the best place to get Vandal shirts. By the way, it's the best priced place to get Vandal shirts, and you're not skimping on quality whatsoever. These are I own a fine tater shirt. Dallas owns one. We know they're high quality, they're comfortable, they're some of the best shirts we have. Company name is Pacific Custom Sportswear. And if you like what they do with their Vandal gear, get a hold of Jeff. If you run a college, you run an org, you run a business, and you want to put together merch for a fundraiser or to sell, or just because you want people to have your company logo somewhere, he can work with you to make your own logo. He can make a logo for you, use what you have, and he can put it on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, whatever, you name it. Get a hold of Jeff. Pacific Custom Sportswear has been run for 25 years plus out of Spokane, Washington. So they're local too. Get a hold of Jeff at vandalgear.com.
Brian, your keys to the game for the toilet bowl of the two worst teams in the Big Sky, the winless in conference Idaho Vandals against the winless completely Portland State Vikings.
So I think the actual toilet bowl was last week, where Weber State and Portland State, that was a different no wins in the Big Sky game. However, if Idaho loses this game, then I'm going to say that description's apt. I don't think they will. So the keys for this game on the Idaho end: one, you're on a 4-game losing streak. It is tough to come out with a ton of pep in your step off that, and the crowd is going to be way worse than it was homecoming. So I think Idaho has a couple things that point toward risk of coming out flat, coming out slow. Vandals can't do that. This is a team you got to put. I think with who Idaho is defensively, this is a team. Idaho's got to put this team away fast. Idaho needs to sow doubt in Portland State and eliminate self-doubt as well. So phase 1, come out swinging. Phase 2, I feel like a goddamn broken record on this. Joshua Wood is easily the best player on this team. Put the game in his hands. Idaho's not going to hold teams to, well, they hopefully can hold Portland State to not many points because Portland State sucks at everything. But defensively, Idaho's the type of team that they need to get enough stops, which means they got to put up some points. So please, put the ball in Joshua Wood's hands. Don't make him throw fades. Let him live off those short to intermediate passes that he does so well. And he's going to be able to rush some. His big plays come off extending plays. That's just how it works. So please put the ball in Joshua Wood's hands on the offensive side. And defensively, Portland State is a team that is ready and willing to turn the ball over. Allow them to do that. Capitalize on that, especially through the air against Team Stone. 11 picks on the season and 4 total touchdowns. This is Portland State's team doesn't run very well, so they find 3rd and long pretty damn readily. Get those turnovers. Take the doubt out of this game as quickly as possible, and get that first Big Sky win up on Thomas Ford's ledger.
Brian, how dare you not respect the Portland State running game? DeLon Thompson has 261 yards on the year. That's 2.7 yards a carry. And their second leading rusher is their backup quarterback. So how dare you not respect the vaunted running game that comes to us from Hillsborough? I fully agree on all of that. If I'm Idaho, you got to get a takeaway in the first 2 drives. You cannot do what you did in homecoming, and you came out flat already. You could feel the emotion was not quite there, and then Again, you just pretty much executed the homecoming crowd on the first play of the game. I want to see the opposite of that. If you steal the ball away in the first 2 drives, you're going to get what little bit of crowd comes back for this game invigorated. You might get a little bit of momentum. You might get the kids on the sideline like cheering and celebrating like their own stuff, and that might finally start getting things moving in a positive direction. But man, that last experience in the Kibbe Dome was pretty brutal. So for me, it's you got to get the environment turned around because it's going to be dead. There's looking at the seats available online right now, Brian, and it is not going to be a homecoming crowd. Let me tell you that. The other thing I want to see is Idaho control the clock. I want this game to be over in 2.5 hours. I want Idaho to drain every second off of this clock. You get a lead on Portland State early, and then you just milk that clock. I don't care. I don't think this is going to be a game that Idaho scores 50 points. I'd love that, but I don't think that's going to happen. I just don't think this is a team that's going to do that. They're going to play up and down to their opponent in most situations. Hopefully that's not going to happen here. But, man, how do you make sure a team like Portland State doesn't come back? By learning from the Eastern Washington tape, stop throwing the fucking football. When you've got a multiple touchdown lead, hands off. Hands off. Just milk that clock out. They can't do anything offensively or defensively. They're not great, but don't give them the opportunity to come back in the game. That's what Eastern did, and they probably should have lost that game for that. Do not do that. That's my biggest thing. Do not fucking throw the football when you're up to 2 touchdowns. Just start killing the clock and get out of there with a win because you desperately, above anything else, you have got to get a win here to at least A, remind some of the kids on the team what it's like to win a game. And B, you start kind of getting to the 2 dipshits like us. You get us to shut the hell up a little bit when you do finally get a win again and start reminding people like, hey, it's not all doom and gloom.
Yeah, and the other thing, just special teams. I feel sometimes we haven't been accurate enough talking about special teams. There's not the personnel for Idaho to have special teams make a difference for them in a positive sense, as in, I talked about, I was that end of the second quarter, couple series for Idaho. I recorded prior to listening to the press conference because I recorded at goddamn midnight, and that's when I could make it work. Thomas Ford said Idaho did not kick a field goal at the end of the second quarter because they were out of Owen Adams' range, and they were at the very, very edge of Owen Forsman's range. And he felt that was a low probability gamble with a high probability of needlessly instilling a lack of confidence in whoever made that attempt. The bigger deal is just go to half 7-6. But I bring that up to say, look, Idaho's just not going to be a good field goal kicking team unless they're kicking 30 yarders from straight on. They're not going to be a team that flips the field punting. We saw with Cameron Pope. I mean, there were times where he looked a little better, but did it look radically different at all with Cameron Pope punting against Eastern? I don't think so. And we know with Lanyetta Alexander out this year, there's no punter kick returner who's the difference maker on this team. So the bigger deal is just for Idaho, just make sure special teams aren't causing you problems, AKA not getting punts blocked. They haven't had that happen, but they came pretty goddamn close at the end of that first half. Not needing to rely on field goals, and just make sure, do your best tackling to not surrender big plays on kick return, punt return, because that's another thing. I'm not saying Portland State's good at this. They're not. But Portland State is a weird team when they produce. It isn't real. It's not like done in this reliable way. It's that weird stuff happens. So Portland State's the type of team, for the love of God, do not spot them field goal position, or do not spot them field position by surrendering a long kickoff return or a solid punt return off a shitty punt.
Yeah. How do you let a shitty team win a football game? With an 18-yard punt that gives them the ball on the wrong side of the 50. And Idaho has a penchant for doing that. So you really don't want to fuck up special teams any more than you have. Captain 58, punting is winning. We haven't punted well and we haven't won. Yes. Unfortunately, yes. Brian, just because, devil's advocate, if I'm Portland State here, I'm coming in knowing I have a couple pieces that are decent. Their edge rusher Spencer Elliott is one of the better edges in the Big Sky. Has 4.5 sacks. Is somebody that one of the few guys that kind of pops. The other guy that pops for me is their nose. I don't remember if he's registered as a guard or a tackle, but their nose is 330 pounds. The dude's huge. He's at Portland State for a reason, but he is a big old swallower in the run game. And we know all about that on the hashtag OnlyTubs Patreon. So with that said, Brian, are we ready to get our drink on? Because my God, did I need that after that Eastern game. And I feel like we're going to need that a couple more times this season.
Yeah, man. It doesn't matter if you're celebrating or forgetting. Grab yourself a Snake River Stampede. Look, there's two options for Snake River, which Snake River makes the best Canadian whiskey that you're going to get in the state of Idaho. And I'm not saying that because they sponsor. Our connection actually came because I am a Snake River fan before they sponsored us. So two options. You got your entry-level Stampede, or you want to class it up a little. You want something nicer. You have their small batch 1915 edition. Both are 3-grain whiskeys, 80% corn, 10% rye, 10% malted barley. Both have double barrel finishes. Your Stampede in first fill bourbon, then Oloroso sherry casks. Your 1915 in sorry, I'm seeing the swallowers keep coming up in the comment section, Dallas, and it's murdering me. The 1915 double barrel finish is ex bourbon, then ex Canadian rye whiskey. You can't go wrong with either. They're the two best Canadian whiskeys in the state of Idaho. Grab yourself Snake River today.
Gentlemen, we did not do Big Sky Pick'em last week because we were all so devastated and sad that we didn't want to have to do it. So we didn't. Brian, I'm just going to rip the fucking Band-Aid off. This is the game everybody's got circled on the calendar this week. It is the best game in the Big Sky. Eastern Washington at Weber State.
Yeah, tickets at $9. So, Martin, you'll be following me here. Tickets $9 right now at Stewart Stadium in Ogden. So, I'm going to go with Eastern. It's a little bit tough to want to do that because both these teams are not very good, but I really think Weber State, their backup quarterback, who against Portland State was not very good either. I just think that we're looking at a coaching change whenever the hell Mickey Mental's contract ends. And Aaron Best, I feel that obviously we know the direction of the program, but he's not like necessarily a terrible in-game coach. So I feel Eastern kind of knows who they are. I think they're kind of riding high off the Idaho win. Plus, Eastern has played other teams tough this year. So I'm going Eastern.
I am going to go with the fighting Colby Petersons.
I think I'm going to do the same, Martin, only because it's a home game for Weber, and there's something to be said about bad teams going on the road to the home of bad teams. Typically, I like the bad team at home than I do the bad team on the road, especially when neither of them are particularly fond of winning football games. This is a rock fight, and nobody is going to care outside of the 27 Eastern football fans and the Weber alumni. Outside of that, nobody cares about this game. Martin, Montana at Sac State.
Look, I thought we were going to go with a different direction first, but I am going to go. Look, there's going to be everybody saw what the Sacramento State president said on TV last week, that bulletin board material. And sometimes, you know what, the heels in wrestling win games, and I think this is one of those times where the heels, as in Sac State, win. Give me the Fighting Hornets over the Pandas of Montana.
Martin, I thought this was going to be you taking a heel turn to pick Montana for the first time, but that's how little I know, guys. Brian.
Sorry, I was looking up the Weber State record at home last year. They won twice. Sacramento State, Montana. I'm going to go with Montana, but I actually think this game is going to be relatively tight. I have been well documented on this show being annoyed by Luke Wood. I thought his trash talk was just kind of like dorky. Like it actually wasn't a big deal to me at all. But you can bet Montana's going to use that because guys Hauck's good at that. Like that's one of the things he does well. What I think is weird is the matchup is one Sac State. If you can't make them pass, they've got some talents on the ground. They can put up points. And Sac State's one of the best teams in the Big Sky at getting to the quarterback. So they have their strengths for sure. The Grizz are weaker secondary, but I don't think Sac State can really threaten them deep because Sac State has like the worst quarterback situation in the Big Sky now that Joshua Wood's back. So I'm going to go Montana, but I think it's going to be a lot tighter than I think a lot of people expect.
Captain 58 with the only thing that anybody needs to know about this game. Oh my God, all the people saying, is Montana in trouble when the game is close? The game might be close. Montana's still going to win this game. That's what happens. It's just they're going to. Sacramento State is up and down, I think, to say the best of them. But man, give me the Grizz. I know it's in Sacramento and they're going to have dozens of fans there, but
they actually get better attendance than you'd guess.
Brian, I know how large that school is. I'm just fucking with them.
I know.
Yeah. But yeah, no, give me Montana, unfortunately. NAU at ISU.
NAU.
Yeah, the other thing I keep being like one step behind the conversation. Sacramento State looks good when the other team sucks. So just keep that in mind too. So the NAU ISU to me is actually a really interesting matchup. Both these teams can pass. Both these teams are kind of suck defensively. In spite of how we all feel about how Idaho's season has gone, this is part of why I brought up expectations. Idaho has more D1 wins than Idaho State right now. Idaho State feels a lot better about their prospects this season because ISU didn't expect they were going to be a top 8-ish team. Mm-hmm. But like we do get to talk about reality and facts as well. And the Idaho State has one Division I win on the year, and they've got they have some ugly FCS losses as well. I'm going to go with NAU, even though this is in the dreaded porno dome, as some people here like to call it. Pocadildo is a tough place to play, of course. But I like this is kind of a must win for NAU. They're off back-to-back losses to Montana State and UC Davis, which we saw that coming on this show. Yep. We certainly brought up that once we get to Halloween, that matchup probably looks a little bit different. For ESPN to not absolutely dread the fact that they picked the NAU Idaho game for Halloween. Oops. NAU needs to pick up a win here. So not that matters, but I think the matchup's good for NAU in a way that matters. So I'm going to go with the Lumberjacks.
That's three guys jacking it. NAU.
I just don't think ISU can off the Jacks. That's just how it works.
Oh man, I don't know how we have people that actually listen to us. Okay. We're going to save that one because that's no, neither of those games are really that interesting. Fuck it. Who cares? Davis at Northern Colorado.
Davis.
So I do think that game is at least kind of interesting because Northern Colorado is definitively okay. Like Northern Colorado hung around with Sac State, and Bears fans probably think they should have come up with a win that game. I know that if we talk about teams in a hypothetical sense, we talk about Idaho this way, but the Bears are also a couple plays from having a pretty damn good record, but they don't have a pretty damn good record, right? So they are who they are. I don't think this is going to be a complete blowout for UC Davis because this is a strength on strength matchup that UNC sucks on the ground, but Davis isn't that great on the ground. Caden Pinnock's been great everywhere, but the strength of your UNC Bears defense is against the pass, and that's the strength of your UC Davis offense. I'm going to pick Davis here because I think they are that is kind of the brain dead pick, but similar to talking Montana and Sac State. I wouldn't be shocked if this game is pretty damn close.
I would agree with that. I don't think it's going to be what is it, number 6 UC Davis. I don't think they're going to go in there and go kill UNC by 35. But again, it is also they've fought some teams close. It is in Greeley, but it's still Northern Colorado against UC Davis until it's actually happened. Man, I'm taking UC Davis. Captain 58 with exactly why. Aggies are too well coached to lose to NoCo unless something happens to Pinnock, Aggies by 2 scores. That's where I fall on it. Is they have maybe the best quarterback in the conference, or at least he's got the ceiling to be that. Who knows how long he's going to be here, but yeah. Ron Lowney choking when they swallow. Dallas, there's no choking here, Ron. There's also no spitting here. Gentlemen, we get to the final game before the toilet bowl. Montana State at Cal Poly.
Montana State.
Yeah, not that much to talk about here. I mean, Cal Poly is one of the surprises of the season, being okay and not terrible. But no, Montana State they have been really damn good defensively, and that's been persistent for the entire season. Offensively, they're clicking the way you thought Montana State would be from day one. But hey, like we've talked about, you have new guys. It does take a minute for everything to really gel. But the Bobcats defensively are way too strong to lose a game to someone like Cal Poly. So easily Montana State.
Yeah, Cal Poly lost 28-8 or 9 or 10 or
28-9.
20. Thank you, 28-9. I do not think it will be that close here. That was in Missoula, and this is in Cal Poly in Mustang Memorial Field or whatever the hell they call it. But no, not a chance. Montana State is the cream of the crop in this conference. They are still, in my opinion, the best non-Dakota State school in the FCS. MSU all the way. That takes us, gentlemen, to bottom 2 Portland State and bottom 2 Idaho. Martin, your final thoughts and your score prediction.
I don't know what to think about this game. I mean, I watched Portland State and Eastern play 3 or 4 weeks ago now. I can't remember what week that was.
Is that the alcohol blacking it out of your brain?
That might be the hydrocodone that I took about a week ago. That's just blacking things out for me.
There we go.
I'm going to go Idaho
powerful
27.
hydro to make you forget stuff a week from then. Who's your doctor,
I'm going to go
man?
Idaho 27, Portland State 10.
Dr. Love, Brian. That's who it is. Dr. Love.
Yeah, so
It's the doctor from the Love line.
That actually would have been about 4 weeks ago because Idaho had a buy in there too. So yeah, that game was 4 weeks ago, Martin. I'm gonna go Idaho 27-10. I think Idaho's going to.
Ryan picking the same score as me. This is insane.
Oh, you did? Oh, Jesus. Let me change that. Sorry, I blacked out looking up Portland State's schedule while you were talking, man. And also, I kind of blacked out thinking, like, who is this doctor writing hydros that somehow aren't killing you but still affecting you 4 weeks later? So I'm going to, not going with that score, Martin. I'm going to go Idaho. I'll go 31 Idaho, 31-13.
Hitting the comment section here, everybody. 208 Fish, QB 1 and 2 back Vandals by 10. Steve Kurtz, Vandals snap the skid, assuming no bad news before the game. Peter Soa 31-10. Cap Dan 58, 40-10. Ron Lowney, where is Rack when you need a friend? Crewhead 21-10. Bradley LaPlante 38-7. Everybody picking the Vandals. I am going 2017 Idaho. I don't love it. It's a little bit closer than I think, but also every time I have thought Idaho was going to put it together on the sidelines, it hasn't happened. So until it happens, we are going to continue to pick those mighty Vandals, mightily pulling defeat right up to their face and then flirting with it for entirely too long.
Okay, well, I have to ask you a question now, and I want to maybe that lets us have a corollary pick here as well. Like, hey, the news is Joshua Wood is starting. Okay, let's say something happens and Joshua Wood is not starting Dallas, or let's say something happens and at the halfway through the first quarter, Sawyer Teeney runs out there, or Nick Joseph runs out. Joseph's number 2 on the depth chart this week, wasn't he?
I mean, he was, but Eli Cummings was leading the depth chart for 3 straight games he didn't play. Okay,
let's say something happens. Joshua Wood doesn't play any of the game or doesn't play most of the game. Dallas, what's your pick?
17-7 Portland State.
Okay, I would go 21. I think 21-14 Idaho. because I do think Portland State is a level of bad that it's hard to compare. But also, like, this Idaho team has found they've just found a way to, when we talk about them not putting things together, and that, by the way, that is the DNA of some teams, is they just don't put it together. When Idaho doesn't put it together, the end that doesn't show up really doesn't show up. Like against Eastern, Idaho actually was pretty good defensively, but they put up 14 points against one of the worst defensive teams they'll play the entire season. And then, like, hey, Utah Tech, we had the opposite. Actually, no, we had the exact same thing of Idaho super strong defensively, did nothing offensively. It was St. Thomas is the opposite, where Idaho scored 37, but couldn't stop anyone. But that was also Joshua Wood.
Gentlemen, any final thoughts before we wrap up our preview of Idaho versus Portland State this weekend? Military Appreciation, Kibbe Dome, 1 p.m. Pacific time Saturday.
It's just, this is such a big deal for Idaho to pick up a win, and it to me also a convincing win. It won't change anything. It won't materially change anything for Idaho either way. But as far as being able to say, like, hey, now we have a stake planted in the ground where we can start to, like, see growth from, this is a big deal. In having a dominating win finally, and showing that, no, like, it did take a minute to hit the ground running. We were all wrong, but at the start of the season, but that just means it took time. Like, I think all that matters for Idaho. So to me, the style points really do matter for Idaho as far as stopping the bleeding and trying to get, more fans to show up, because this is just the reality of Idaho football year in and year out. Vandals right now have to convince the Pacific Northwest and the people of Boise to travel for games. We know the attendance is going to be lower this game. I'm not telling people not come. I will be there. I'm traveling for that game. But we just know from the people we talk to, some of the people from Boise are not coming because of the homecoming in Eastern, how that showing was, because it's a lot of money and a lot of time to commute up from Boise. Idaho needs to reinstill some confidence in the fan base, because we do want more people here. We're talking Idaho State. That's a big deal, to have more people for Senior Day and the Sacramento State game in between now and Senior Day. We want as many people there as possible. Idaho's got some work to do to get some fans who are saying, hey, I'll wait until things get better. If we want to pull them back in, the style points this week matter.
Yeah, couldn't agree more on that, Brian. One last thing I want to hit. Bradley LaPlante in the comment section asking us to pick the marker game. And Tom Kendall did it for us. Dakota wins.
I'm going North Dakota State is going to win that game.
Yeah, same.
I'm with you. I did not miss your joke. But side note, maybe we need to save this as an off season. It's just because you brought up Sacramento State attendance, which again, I know you're joking about, but a joke we have not yet made on this show. In about a year, Sacramento State is going to have a stadium that looks exactly like Portland State's.
Yes, 100% they are.
At Cal Expo, there's one grandstand. It's, there's horse racing that takes place there. There will not be a second grandstand when Sacramento State starts playing there. So a year from now, Sacramento State is going to be FCS independent, playing at a stadium that looks worse than Portland State's.
I mean, they've got 3 games announced for next year, Brian.
Brian, do we need to have a BSPN power rankings of the stadiums for next year?
That would beat some things. Oh, and hey, the last thing, sorry, I keep coming up with new things.
I like this, Martin.
I do want to acknowledge basketball for like 10 seconds. Idaho played an exhibition, played Boise State last Friday, and they lost, I don't know, like 7, something like that. I don't remember the score off the top of my head, but it was a real competitive game. Idaho basketball early on, early returns are theoretically promising. Now we know to only extrapolate so much from a loss and an exhibition loss. But we had Jack Payne being voted first team all preseason Big Sky this week. That was a big deal. Hope Hassman on the ladies' side, first team all Big Sky preseason. We'll be, I think, with no football playoffs to talk about until further notice, we'll probably have some basketball stuff start up earlier than we typically do. And what I might try to do for the men's side, at least, is do a couple Tub shorts so that we're following in the out of conference. But that is a story that I don't want to completely leave off the table. Football is king. It always will be. But there's reason to be cautiously optimistic about both the men's and women's basketball teams heading into November.
And that hasn't happened in damn near a decade. So get excited, Hoopers. With that said, we will see hopefully most of you in the Kibbe Dome this weekend. I don't know how many of you that listen to this are not going to be there. I hope your spirit is there, and I hope that you find your way back to the Kibbe Dome someday. But as always,
go Vandals. Go Vandals.
Go Vandals.